about introducing of international trade and differences between domestic trade and international trade the other day. And also, I had a glance on the advantages of comparative advantage and absolute advantage, which I will repeat that a little bit because I got few messages from students asking me to explain a little bit further. Right. There was one incident that is there was a question on this area that is from the comparative advantage or the law of comparative theory. So better to, get the concept right before going to the exam. Other than that, we did the method of payment, or we did a paving of method of payment, and we did the open account and the consignment basis, and how the clearance procedure taking place, and the with regard to the cust deck, that is the customs declaration form, and certain salient features of the cust deck, I did discuss. And I intend discussing about the next method of payment, that is the advance payment. But before that, yes, I can do for the advance payment also as well. But then before that, I thought of doing the negotiable instrument, which I have given a handout today. So you need to know what a negotiable instrument is in purpose of international trade. We are not going to do the negotiability and the negotiable instruments where you find in normal general principles of law or the banking law, but there are certain salient features that we take it for the convenience of transactions of trade. And those aspects has to be discussed before trying to understand the next measure of payment, like document collection, and especially with regard to DA collections. So I touched the negotiable instruments, and then the forfeiting and what you call forfeiting and factoring. Then I will go to the advance payment, that is the next method of payment, which is completely opposite of the open account trading. Open account trading I did, but I will do a refreshment a little bit if there are any students who have just joined. And also, so we'll before everything, we'll have a little bit of a brush up on the absolute advantage and the comparative advantage. Right. If there's any queries with regard to that, I'm not quite sure whether the students have fed me with regard to repetition of the advantages in the class. But if there's anybody finds a little bit of a gray area with regard to these two, just make a nudge on the chat box. I will make a concern on that. Right. If you don't hear properly or see properly, then let me know if I can get some technical assistance now. So the advantages. Advantage in the sense the disparity that I am referring to, where one country has over the other country, right? So there are two advantages: the absolute advantage and the comparative advantage. Absolute advantage and the comparative advantage. So to understand how this was actually brought into scene or gave the concept by Adam Smith, and this was given by David Ricardo. You can search an engine and get yourself a brush up and have a wide spectrum of knowledge of the advantage if you Google search. But it is not that necessary to fall in line our syllabus. Knowing what the concept that I have given, certain outlining that I have given in my handout with regard to absolute and the comparative advantage, that will be suffice, right? Right. So to understand absolute advantage, I will give an example, and the same example I will take into compare with one JAWS as well. This is based on the labor output. This is based on the opportunity cost. So these are the two vital, what you call the ingredients that are needed to have an argument on the absolute and the comparative advantage. Other factors with regard to trading are treated as constant, right? So we have we take UK and Canada the same way that I have given in the handout. United Kingdom, that is UK, consumed 300 hours. To produce 1 ton of wheat. Produce 1 ton of wheat. And the same country consumes only 150 hours to produce 1 car. Canada takes only 200 hours to produce 1 ton of wheat. And it takes 250 hours to produce 1 car. Right. You should have the handout. Please do take a printout every time that when I give a handout beforehand. And this was given last time, so you should have a listing. Otherwise, you will just have a glance on this. So there are 2 countries only now. Rest of the countries are not being taken into consideration. And only 2 commodities in the trading. That is wheat and manufacturing of cars. So UK takes 300 hours as opposed to only 200 hours to produce 1 ton of wheat. Right. Likewise, UK takes only 150 hours to produce 1 car, and Canada takes 250 hours to produce 1 car. So there are a lot of assumptions that you have to make it, or don't try to visualize the quality of the car or the make of the car. We refer to the car a common car. So now here you see very clearly, Canada has an absolute advantage of producing wheat because it takes only 200 hours as opposed to 300 hours taken by UK. Likewise, UK has an absolute advantage over producing cars because it takes only 150 hours. When compared with Canada, it takes 250 hours to produce 1 car. Now, this is referring to the labor. So, what the UK will think of it is, in way that we have what you call wasting our time to produce wheat, because it takes about 300 hours. With the 300 hours, we can make 2 cars. Right? And might as well we'll import from Canada the 1 ton of wheat. Likewise, Canada will think in ways that we are producing, consuming 250 hours of producing cars will pump into producing of wheat. So 250 divided by 200 will be 1.25. 1.25. So Canada actually can produce 1.25. That is 1 1/4 tons of wheat. Tons of 1 1/4 tons of wheat, right? And import 1 car from UK. So finally, Canada will have 1/4. Canada will have, this is the gain of Canada will be 1 quarter. 1 quarter means how much? 1 quarter or 25%. 1 quarter means not 1 and 1 quarter. 1 quarter means, it's simple English, right? 1 quarter means 0.25 or quarter, 1/4. You can say fourth also, or 25%. So the gain to Canada by trading like this, in other words, by stopping manufacturing cars and trading with UK to import cars and export a ton of wheat, ultimately Canada will gain 0.25 ton of wheat plus 1 car. It's not a gain. Gain is 0.25. Likewise, UK pump into the car manufacturer the 300 hours, meaning they have 2 cars. So 1 car was exported, so they have 1 car. So the gain is 1 car. So this is how the absolute advantage works. One should be able to understand, go through once again a pressure, and write on your own. You can have a different method also as well, right? Only the concept is UK will stop producing wheat, and that amount of time will be given to produce cars. Vice versa, Canada for cars and for wheat. They will stop manufacturing cars and give their time to produce wheat. And finally, you see, you balance and see what the gain. And also, you have to have in mind, just because they have stopped making wheat, they need wheat also as well. Canada, they have stopped making cars, but they need a cars as well. So for that matter, they will trade. This trade is called international trade. So in other words, it's very fair to trade. International trade takes place only if there is disparity. If there are 2 countries, A and B, if they don't have an absolute advantage of B, neither B has over A, the trade doesn't take place. They are self-sufficient, both countries are self-sufficient, trade will not take place. Right. Now, in the chat box, just give me a, make a denote saying that you have understood or not. Just say yes or no, so that I can proceed to the comparative advantage. Fine. That's enough. So I'm not quite sure. I can't remember the names who have sent me messages asking me to do the advantages. Perhaps a student would have come to the class and just mere collecting the handout would have found it difficult. So no need of showing up. I just explain now. So we'll shift quickly to the comparative advantage. So the comparative advantage is based on not on labor, but on opportunity cost. Opportunity cost. So same 2 countries I am taking, UK and Canada, and UK takes about 400 hours to produce 1 ton of wheat. And it takes only 375 hours to produce 1 car. Canada takes 200 hours to produce 1 ton of wheat, and it takes 300 hours to produce 1 car. Now in this grid, you will see both commodities, that is for wheat and cars, Canada has the absolute advantage because Canada consumes only 200 hours and 300 hours respectively, as opposed to 400 and 375 hours of UK. So when you take the both commodities, Canada has the advantage, absolute advantage. But if trade takes place, they try to exchange. Now, just because A country sees that the B countries has the two advantage, that is absolute advantage of both commodities, that doesn't mean the A country should be discouraged, because there's a thing called opportunity cost loss as well. Right? So when you go through the absolute advantage, Canada has a better edge. Now, what the UK will do, we'll see what the UK and Canada both will do. And if the opportunity cost being taken into consideration, I have given a second grade. Say, I'll explain how it has come. So, it takes 400 hours to produce 1 ton. It takes 300 hours to produce 1 car. So, if this 400 hours being given to produce a car, right? So that means they have 775 hours. 775 hours. 375 plus 400, right? And if you divide 775 by 375, you are getting approximately, for the second decimal point, 2.07. 2.07. Likewise, if we divide out, that is, if the 400 hours being given to produce cars, if the whole labor being given to produce wheat, what happens? The 375 goes here. So the full labor hours will be 775. So 775 divided by 400, you get 1.94, approximately for two decimal points. 1.94, right? So when you trade, what happens? I'm taking only one country now. When you trade, what happens? They have to give away 1 car, whereas they have an edge of 1.07. And here, if they give 1 ton of wheat, they have an edge of 0.94. That is how the second grid have had come. Same thing if you do for Canada, you will get this source. The other thing also as well. Divide 300 by 200, it will be 1.5 wheat. If you divide 200 by 300, then you have to divide by 2 or 300. That is about 0.6666, right? So that will be 0.67. So 0.67 of cars. If you divide 200 by 300 by 200, it's 1.5 of wheat, right? So that means when you trade, what happens? He has a gain of 0.5, right, in wheat, and he has a gain of 0.7 of cars. So that's the comparative advantage. So that's because United Kingdom has no absolute, they have an absolute disadvantage over Canada. If you have the comparative advantage, they have a comparative advantage. Looking at the opportunity cost, still they can make a gain of 0.07 cars. Right? Right. That is slightly complex, I know. You have to do a little bit more to understand that on your own. This is not the best method that I can put it across. You will have a very simpler method. This is the concept anyway. Right? So, looking at the second grid, you will not understand straight away. So, in between, there's another grid also. That's what I said this. Divide 700. When you give 400 hours to this becomes 775. If you give 375 to this, it becomes 775. So either way, the labor time will be 775. Divide by 400, divide by 375, then you get 1.94 and 0.207, 2.07. Right. So make a comment on that toss as well. Just say yes or no, that's enough. If you say yes, it's good. If you say no, I will try to simplify once again. I'll request you to do it on your own. And still, if you find difficult of this thing, just make a reminder for me to do in the next session so that I can prepare some another method and come and see whether I can put across in a more simple manner. Right. Fine. So you have understood, no? Right. So you can understand more complicated things, right? Right. Thank you now. Right. You'll understand what negotiable instrument is. Many students in the class may have followed the elements of banking or commercial banking for that matter, or general principles of law or banking related law. You must have this thing, and being bankers also, knowing what a negotiable instrument is a must factor. So, negotiating means actually mere delivery or endorsement plus delivery. Right? So I took the crux of the definition of negotiability. It's actually mere delivery or endorsement plus delivery. Example, now this is a check. Everybody has seen checks, right? This is a check. So there's the amount in here, rupees 1,000. We say pay A Fernando, sign, and dated. So if presented to a bank over the counters, to the particular bank which is stated on the check. So here it says the name of the bank. We take a bank, People's Bank. Right. So you are supposed to go to the People's Bank counters during the course of business hours, and if you present the check, you get paid for 1,000 rupees. Now, who is you? A Fernando. Right? A Fernando. I'll write another check here. Very elementary this is, but I'm trying to put across a point how those certain aspects of negotiable usable be taken into or grabbed into trade. We'll take the same example here. Where A Fernando has a portion of a check of 1,000 rupees, dated, signed. Here it says cash, pay cash. So A Fernando, when he goes over the counter to the People's Bank again, People's Bank will pay to A Fernando. And if B Fernando takes his check and goes, B Fernando also will get paid. So anybody who bears a check for 1,000 rupees in this manner, People's Bank are going to pay if being presented during the course of business hours. So that is mere delivery. That is mere delivery in other words. Right? Now we'll take the same example. The drawer. He's a drawer. Drawer is the person who issues. Drawer is the person who issues and signs the check. Drawer. Right? I'm pronouncing it as drawer, but it's actually drawer. But then again, for you to understand properly, only I'm pronouncing awkwardly the W here. Right. So, draw present the check for 1,000 rupees and issued the check to A. Fernando, and you will make sure that A. Fernando will go to the counters and get the cash. And you will say here, you will see on a check, it says here, where oblique order. So we cut the where. So that means order. Now, when A. Fernando goes during the course of business hours to People's Bank counters and present the check, People's Bank counters will say, I cannot pay the check because it's an order check. Therefore, please make an endorsement. Endorsement is done by whom? By the payee. Payee. Now, who is the payee? A. Fernando. So, A. Fernando will, the practice is in Sri Lanka to make an endorsement on the overleaf of the check. That is on the reverse of the check. So, on the reverse of the check is like this. So, he will endorse on flowing handwriting, A. Fernando, without giving any spaces. Like that. Not the signature, he will write the same manner the way they have written, but in flowing handwriting, A. Fernando. This is a regular endorsement. So once he endorses and gives back to the counter again, he will get 1,000 rupees paid. Endorsement plus delivery. So negotiable means what? Either mere delivery or endorsement plus delivery. So but if you refer to the negotiation search engine and see what is negotiable, you get a huge thesis of the negotiation. But you take the crux of it, it's nothing but mere delivery and endorsement plus delivery. Now, bill of exchange. Now, bill of exchange is not been associated by the other areas of banking. It embraced and associated only in trade, the bill of exchange. So, specific of a bill of exchange is before the next class I will send across. Not only that, all documents or most of the documents, common famous documents which associate in international trade, I will take certain specimens and circulate amongst you all. Then you can have a rough idea what a bill of exchange is about. Right. Bill of exchange also like a check. It's like a check. Something like this. Right? It's been signed by a person called drawer. Like the check. Right? And the bill of exchange can be drawn on anybody. Bill of exchange can be drawn on anybody. Now, there are certain terminology when I'm using, if you are not very much comfortable, just bear up with me. Within the course of the time, you will understand. Right. So in the bill of exchange, BOE could be drawn on anybody. Drawn on anybody. So that anybody is the recipient or the person who is liable to pay is called the drawee. Drawee. Actually pronounced as drawee. Drawee. But if I pronounce like that the correct way, you will not get the proper idea of it, or the what you call the spelling. That's why I said drawee. The drawer, drawee. DRAWEE and ER. ER is the person who signs and issues. EE is the person to whom the bill of exchange will be drawn on. That means who is liable? Drawee is liable. Drawee is liable. Right. Then there's another party called the payee. Usually, drawer, listen carefully, Drawer requests the payee. Drawer, the other way. Drawer requests the drawee to pay to payee. Right? In other words, payee is the drawer's bank. In many instances, in trade, drawer requests the drawee, because drawee is the person who is liable to pay. Drawee to pay can't pay to him directly, no, because he's in a different country. Drawee is in a different country. Unlike in a check. Now, if you check, comparing with a check, you have the drawer here. You don't have a drawee. You don't have a drawee, but it will be drawn on the bank all the time. And it requests the bank, his bank, to pay to person who carries or to order. That's why I said delivery or endorsement plus delivery. In this case, drawer demanded the drawee to pay to his bank, to drawer's bank. That's how this is being drawn. In other words, a bill of exchange will have three parties: drawer, drawee, and payee. And the check, this is a check. Check will have only two parties: drawer and payee. Right. Now we'll understand what a check is. Many of here maybe seldomly here and there, maybe one or two students, or maybe little more than that, might not work in a bank. But majority of the class in here are working for a bank. That means they must have seen checks. They must have touched checks and handled checks. They have received payment to checks. Then they may have paid out of, in other words, they have paid money out of the checks, outward clearing or inward clearing. So for them, the check is a common thing in a day-to-day life in the bank. Right. If that's the case, what is a check? What is a check? Check is a bill of exchange. Check is a bill of exchange. Check is a bill of exchange. And what is the second one? It has to be drawn on a bank. That is why I said always a check will carry the name of the bank on top of it on a bigger font. You will say People's Bank checks, National Bank checks, PABC checks. You can't take a PABC check to National Bank account and ask the money to pay. Right? So it's drawn on the bank all the time. Drawn on the bank. Third one. Can you guess, any of you all, can you guess what the third one is? Yes, Devendra, you are making a point here. Bank tax as an agent for the drawer. Yes, yes, very good, very good. Yeah, that's some elements of banking, or perhaps some what do you call, law aspects of banking. Yes, bank as an agent and the customers are principal. Very good. What is the third one? When you see a check. That's the thing. Many of us, including myself, handle lots of checks without knowing what a check is. Right? Have you ever noticed that the check is a bill of exchange? For that matter, you should know what a bill of exchange is. Even I have not explained what a bill of exchange is yet to you. Check is a bill of exchange. So, in other words, bill of exchange act will come to the check cost as well. Right. Yes, Nikita Valentine. In a check, draw is always a bank. Yes, draw is always a bank. Yes, draw is always a bank. She or he, which is slightly high in there. I didn't mention that. But if you visualize, that's the what you call the analytical power that a student should have, including myself. Right? When I say there are only two parties to a check, drawer, draw and pay, there should be a drawers as well. But you don't see the drawing. Why is that? It is always drawn on the banker. So that means the banker is the drawing. So that's a very good point in there. But remember, I hope that I'm pronouncing your name properly. Your Nikita, I guess. Check has two parties and bill of exchange has three parties. So check is, there are three qualifications to make a financial instrument to a check. There are many financial instruments out of which if these three are qualifies, that instrument is called a check. It has to be a bill of exchange. It has to be drawn on a banker. What is the third one? Yes. Tell me what is the third qualification that you should see in a check? I'll give a clue. A person comes with a check, regularly drawn, a proper check, funds being arranged. If you close for business at 3 o'clock, person comes at about 5 o'clock and process a check. Can you pay? You can't pay. Right. Person comes at about 10 o'clock in the morning during the course of business hours, well within the business hours. You process a check. Customer process a check. Can you tell him that I'm not feeling enough to pay the check now? Can you come tomorrow? I have a lot of checks to be paid or reconciled. Can you come tomorrow and pay? You can't do that. Why is that? That's because your boss says that? Or that's because this warrants? Then what is the third part? Now I've given a clue now. Yes, I'm waiting for your reply. Bearer, yes, bearer only comes actually. Bearer means the person who bore the check and goes to the counters. So when he suddenly the check to pay, can the bank say, no, come tomorrow to pay? What is that check means for the banker? You are getting the correct word properly. It's always payable on demand. Don't forget these are demand. Demand. So that means check is a demanded instrument. So that is why you have to pay a check without delay. That is why the manager will always try to pull up or get excited when there's a queue up, a bit of a longer queue up, mean they are over the counter. So we'll come and interfere. What is the delay? And he will introduce another counter and this thing. But outward it says as if this is a customer service. This is not the customer service mainly. Customer can sue the bank because not paying in demand. Right? So there are 3 points for a financial instrument. I hope that you have taken now. For a financial instrument to become a check, these 3 qualifications have to be fulfilled simultaneously. It is a bill of exchange, check is a bill of exchange, drawn on the banker, and it has to be payable on demand. Right. Now I did say now check is a bill of exchange. Now we have to understand what the meaning of bill of exchange is in the case, right? So explaining the bill of exchange in this manner will be a bit cumbersome and try to understand. So I will give the definition in bill of exchange in point form, take it down, study. And this particular area is very important for every other paper I have seen in the MCQ. They take one line of the what you call the bill of exchange definition and ask a question. Right. So up to now we know there are only three parties to a bill of exchange. there are three parties to a bill of exchange. There is a drawer, drawee, and payee. And also we know another aspect. Check is a bill of exchange. Right? But don't come to a conclusion that a bill of exchange is a check. Bill of exchange is not a check. Right? Check is a bill of exchange. But bill of exchange is not a check. Not a two-way, right? Right, take it down, bill of exchange. Bill of exchange ordinance. (1882). 1882. Within parentheses, you can take it down. Enacted in Sri Lanka. Enacted in Sri Lanka. In 1927. Enacted. That is through a parliamentary act. This was enacted. That is embraced legally. Enacted. Enacted. In Sri Lanka in 1927. Right. With regard to bill of exchange, you can search and study if you really want. Especially if there are any law students here or reading for law, then it's a must that you need to know the anatomy of the bill of exchange. Then I expect you all to refer some books which related to law related banking plus search in the engine. Right. 14-point form. It's an unconditional order. It's an unconditional order. It's an unconditional order in writing. Addressed by one person to another. Addressed by one person to another. Signed by the person who is giving it. Signed by the person who is giving it. Amount certain in money. Amount certain in money. You're writing in point form, right? Amount certain in money. Payable on demand, that is continuous with the 1 point. Payable on demand, comma. Fixed, F-I-X-E-D. Payable on demand, comma, fixed. Of future determinable time. Payable on demand, fixed, or future determinable time. To bearer. To bearer. Comma, order. Or to a specified person. Or to a specified person thereof. That is specified person given to the specified person is. Right. So bill of exchange is an unconditional order in writing. Writing includes printing off as well. Addressed by one person to another. Signed by the person who is giving it. Amount certain in money, payable on demand, fixed or future determinable time, to bearer, order, or to a specified person thereof. Thereof means one word, thereof. You need to buy hard disks, like at least until the exam. Right? That is for the non-bankers. For the bankers, you have to buy hard, and if you forget that, you have to buy hard again. Because if you want to stick in the bank as a career, you need to know what the bill of exchange is, right? So it's an unconditional order in writing, addressed by one person to another, signed by the person who is giving it, that is the drawer. Amount certain in money. You can't be ambiguous when you're writing a bill of exchange. This is one of the reasons that been influenced to the check source as well. You see in customary. When customers write the amount in words, they write 1,200,057 and cents 75 only. Just because the word only is not there, you are going to return the check. But this is how customers will write it. How it has come is to make sure that it's certain. Amount certain in money. From where it comes? From the 1882 ordinance. Right. So I will take a few aspects from the bill of exchange, and you have to remember those aspects when I do the methods of payment, especially on document collection D area. This aspect that I am trying to mention will get used. I did say somewhere in revision, payable on demand, fixed or future is available time. Right. So I separated that this now. This for these two. Demand means what? Bill of exchange acts as a check cost as well sometimes because check is payable on demand all the time. So bill of exchange, if it is done on demand, those bill of exchange are called at site bill of exchange. Site bill of exchange. Site bill of exchange. Unlike a check, bill of exchange could be drawn for the future date. When a check is drawn, check has to be drawn on demand. But a bill of exchange could be drawn for the future date. Check cannot be drawn like that. Could be drawn for future date. That's why a fixed date being given. Payable this on 21st. Now we are not going what the date is today. What's the date? 30. So around 13. So I can write a bill of exchange payable on 13th of 21, year 21. After 1 year's time, I can write. Fixed. Or in the instrument itself, I can say like this. If the bill of exchange is dated 13 December 2020, I will say payable on 45 days from event date. Event date means from the bill of exchange date. So from 13/12, I can calculate for 45 days and determine what the future date is, payable date is. That is called the maturity date. That is why I say determinable time. That determinable factor has to be come through the instrument itself, not uncertainty in there. Future determinable time. You can see 120 days from the shipment date. The shipment date has to be given elsewhere on the bill of exchange. Then anybody can calculate, this is the shipment date, 120 days from shipment date is the date that I should pay. In other words, the bill of exchange matures on the postponed date or a deferred date. So these deferred dates are commonly used as users. Get the spellings right? USA, NCE. Users. So bill of exchange could be drawn in two ways. One is by site or by users. Check cannot be drawn like that. Check always has to be on demand. Now you see the differences between check and bill of exchange. Even though check is a bill of exchange is not a check. Now these aspects are being taken to proceed with our method of payment, especially the document collection. Right. So you remember, right? Right. So what I try to emphasize is bill of exchange payable on demand is bill of exchange has only one phase. You throw the bill of exchange to the bank counters and demand for the payment, provided that the check is been regularly drawn and you have present the check during the course of business hours. Bank is not obliged to pay if it is outside the perimeter of the business hours. If the bank opens at 9 o'clock, bank is not obliged to pay at 8:59. If the bank closes at 3 o'clock, bank is not obliged to pay after 3 o'clock. So during the course of business hours, if the check being thrown and if the particular check is drawn regularly, then that particular instrument is demanded for payment. Demanded for payment. Right? That is why you need to treat a customer, especially the customer who's having a current account or checking account, you call it, with little bit of a regard. Because he carries an instrument who can demand. It's a demanded instrument. Somebody said in here, bank as an agent. Bank becomes an agent for a statutory customer. Statutory customer, I'm slightly deviating from the subject. Statutory customer means not the modern concept of a customer. Modern concept of customer means, as youngsters, if there are any young people here, I can see the faces of you all. If there are young students in here, can't can't say that you are too young also, because it's a final exam, and also when you come to do the trade, you are slightly being matured in the departments or in the branches as well. So modern customer means anybody in the induction programs or in the training sessions in your own bank, how they will treat or how will tell you who the customer is. Anybody who comes to seek information during the course of business hours. That's a customer. That is why when a customer comes in, somebody goes and at least a security guard will go and ask him, yes, can I help you? To whom that you want to speak to? While sitting for long. Because anybody coming through the board of Pan Asia Bank during the course of business hours, he's seeking information, he's a customer. Who's a statutory customer? Statutory customer means a legalized customer. Statutory customer means the person who has a demand deposit account. Person who has a demand deposit account. So when the customer has a demand deposit account, customer becomes the principal, that particular customer becomes the principal, and the bank and XBN on behalf of its authorization becomes the agent. So the student who made a point saying that the bank as an agent will agree with my explanation, I hope. She or he, Udita Devind. Right. Right. Now we'll see what the factory means, right? And please do read this handout. It's a very important and useful handout. So I have shared certain practices of my experience in here to the instruments, and I've taken some excerpts from the textbook with regard to bill of exchange and promissory notes and awards and guarantees, and also some experiences being shared with regard to forfeiting and factoring. Right. So we'll come to before factoring, we'll come to forfeiting. That will be easy to understand. Right. Forfeiting. 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 Right. Forfeiting. To understand what forfeiting, I see the way I will draw up a small grid and try to explain from the grid itself, then we will understand what forfeiting is, right? Right. So we have exporter and importer. Then you have a bank, exporter's bank or the merchant's bank. Then the importer's bank. This is a merchant bank, merchant is the exporter, and the importer's bank. Those are the four parties that you will find in the forfeiting. Right. So I have named the bullets in here in the grid, and I have explained what the bullets are. We'll run up to the bullets and see what the forfeiting means actually. In a nutshell, what you need to understand is you can write on your own words, right? I mean, forfeiting, we are not undertaking or taking over the sales ledger of the customer. You know what the sales ledger is? We are not taking over the sales ledger. We are the bank, we is the bank, right? The bank is not going to employ to his premises and see what the sales turnover that this particular customer is doing for every transaction. That is for factoring. For forfeiting, bank is not interested. Customer has the liberty, out of all his transactions, he can choose a couple of transactions only or one transaction to forfeit. But that is the main point that you need to understand. Right. In forfeiting, exporter ship the goods. Ship the goods. Ship the goods. And this goods has to be consigned to importer. You know the meaning of consign now. You consign the importer. Right? Then the exporter forward the documents. Now you know what the documents also as well if you come for the first session. Documents means commercial documents, transport documents, and insurance policy or certificate. So when you put those three documents, now it is not only three documents, there are plenty of documents in shipping documents, but those all documents could be segregated into commercial documents, meaning you don't have a financial characteristic on a particular document is called a commercial document. Then you get the transport document, then you get the insurance policies. So when you put all those documents together, create it, that particular document is called those documents are called document. Right? So that's the document I'm talking of. So in international trade as opposed to domestic trade, the seller has or the exporter has to perform in two ways. He has to part with the goods, he has to part with the documents also as well. So that I have explained in detail in the first session. So when he ship the goods, he has to send the documents also simultaneously. He can't buy time and send the documents. Right? So he has to send the goods. In this case, he sends the goods to the bank. To which bank? To the importer's bank. Right? And he requests this bank to accept the bill. Now there's a little bit of gray area here, there's a little bit of technical area, and we'll explain that, right? Take it as it is. Exporter will request this importer's bank, I will say importer's bank here, IBank. The exporter will request the IBank, that is importer's bank, to get the bill of exchange accepted by the importer. So in other words, this particular document has another must document. What? A financial instrument. So what is the financial instrument associated to trade? Bill of exchange. So for forfeiting, The most important document, in other words, is the bill of exchange. You can't forfeit without the bill of exchange. Right. So what the exporter says, after sending the documents comprises of the shipping documents, first the financial documents in here, and you return the importer's bank. Don't read the documents. You get the bill of exchange except first. So the IBank, what they will do is they will detach the bill of exchange from the rest of the document and request the importer to accept. Accept means you take notice that acceptor. There's a legal term called accept. Accept. So how do you accept the bill of exchange? Now this is the bill of exchange. You get the drawer, you get the drawee, and you get the payee, and you get the amount. Written in foreign currency. Is it pounds 500 dated? Right? And the bill of exchange has to be a user's bill of exchange. Otherwise, you won't accept. You don't accept. There's no logic of accepting a side bill. Side bills become demand. There's nothing to accept and make a promise to pay at maturity. You accept the bill of exchange to pay at maturity. So this bill of exchange has to be a user's bill of exchange. So therefore, I will do a small correction here. I will say users. Users. So user's bill of exchange accompanies these documents, and you request the IBank to get the acceptance on the user's bill of exchange. So user's bill of exchange is this now. The IBank will summon the importer. They will summon the importer and say that we have got a set of documents from the exporter so and so. Please call over in person and accept the bill of exchange. So what the importer will do? Importer will say accepted. Right? If it has happened in Colombo, we say in Colombo. In which state? For the date. And he will sign under fiduciary capacity. Remember these words, fiduciary capacity. FIDUCIARY, fiduciary capacity. That means this customer cannot sign as A Fernando, B Fernando, like that. He has to sign on a company C, say director A Fernando. It could be legible or legible. Right? So, not under personal name. So he signs on a fiduciary capacity. That means he has to discharge on the fiduciary capacity, and then this bill of exchange becomes a accepted bill of exchange. It is not just a bill of exchange, except a bill of exchange. Remember, class, once a customer or a drawee, now who accepts the drawee, right? The import is the drawee. This being drawn on a drawee. In this case, I forgot to tell that the exporter, when he draws the bill of exchange, drawee's name is the importer. Drawee's name is the importer because he has to pay. Importer has to pay. If only the drawee can accept the bill of exchange. Now, if the bill of exchange be drawn to me, she cannot accept. I have to accept. Right. So drawee has accepted, and the bank will retain the bill of exchange. Retain the bill of exchange. That retained bill of exchange is called the accepted bill of exchange. Remember, once the bill of exchange is accepted, import is liable to pay. Until the bill of exchange is accepted, import is nothing to do with the bill of exchange. That is why the bank summons the importer to his premises over the counter against the officials of the bank, request the customer to sign. No witnesses required, sign under fiduciary capacity. Once signs, then this particular collateral or the instrument or the accepted bill of exchange belongs to whom? To the exporter. It is not the property of the importer's bank or the importer. It belongs to the exporter. So, once the bill of exchange is accepted, the importer's bank will send the document, send this accepted bill of exchange. I will say accepted bill of exchange to the exporter. Now, exporter will have a what you call a legalized financial instrument. Why legalized? Because it's been accepted by the importer. Right? To legalize financial instrument, the exporter has. Exporter, other than that, exporter doesn't have anything because he has sent the goods, he has sent the documents, and he has to look up and wait. So mitigate that risk only, he has to accept a bill of exchange. Now, once the import is, that is not necessary for this cycle, but I'm telling you, once the bill of exchange is retained, and after accepting, the bank will retain the accept the bill of exchange and release the rest of the shipping documents for the importer for him to go and clear the cargo, no payment. So he goes and clear the consignment and enjoys the goods. But he's supposed to come back to the bank or request the bank to make the payment on the maturity date where the bill of exchange states. If there's a user's bill of exchange, there always has to be a maturity date. It has to be a fixed or a future interpretable type. Remember the definition? Fixed or future interpretable type. So customer has to show up on particular that day, user's date, or rather deferred date, and make the payment. Until such time, he is not going to cite the bank. Except the bill of exchange being given to the exporter. Now this particular, he has to accept the bill of exchange. Now the exporter has two choices. That is, wait until the date of maturity and get the payment from the importer's bank to his banker. So payment will be done on maturity. Maturity means when the payment falls due. When the payment falls due for, that is the date of maturity. So on maturity, importer will come and pay to the importer's bank, to his banker, that is to the I bank. I bank will pay to the M bank. M bank is the merchant's bank or the exporter's bank. That is on maturity. So one choice is that he can wait until the date of maturity, he will know for sure the money will come. But if the money won't come, merchant bank or the exporter cannot sue the I bank. I bank has nothing to do with it. It is the obligation of the import to make the payment. The second choice is, now they have the question of the except the bill of exchange, I told you, is legalized or no. So what he can do is, he can give the except the bill of exchange. I will say bill of exchange accepted. This is except the bill of exchange. Right? It's a more solid than bill of exchange. So the exporter will give the bill of exchange before maturity. If he wants the payment beforehand to the merchant bank and get it discounted. Discount is what? If the value of the bill of exchange is $100, merchant bank will give me 99. $1 is the discounting fee. Right? So discounting comes without saying before maturity if you want to get the payment. So I will rush to the bank and say, here I have accept a bill of exchange, don't worry, right? You take this and pay me, give discounted. Right? So the bank will take a discounting fee, not pay the upfront value because they are paying, because bank has a lack of funds now. So they will calculate the lack of interest factor until such due date from that particular number of days, the bonds are already released. And they calculate and they will deduct from the first value and pay the exporter. So that mechanism is called the forfeiting. Forfeiting. Right. Take down this what do you call two lines. That is related to forfeiting. I'm trying to give a little bit of banking term, because forfeiting done mainly, that business type of business is done mainly outside the bank scopes. Right? Banks are not into forfeiting that much, but outside the scope, from company to company, big companies, they do forfeiting and factoring. But the mechanism of the trust of the forfeiting is comes from the banking term. called avalization. So that little aspect you have to take it down very carefully. I fear that you might sometimes take it down a little bit of jargon here and there. So therefore, try to be focused with regard to avalization. Right, you say there are instances, there are instances there are instances where exporters where exporters need a importer's bank guarantee. Need a importer's bank guarantee. Importer's bank, not the importer guarantee, yeah? Importer's bank guarantee. Importer's bank guarantee. Import apostrophe is importer's bank guarantee for the payment at maturity. For the payment at maturity on usance draft. On usance draft. Draft. Draft means a shortened form of bill of exchange. Right? Draft means shortened form of bill of exchange. Some people must have heard, if there are any senior people in the class, you must have heard the bank foreign draft, demand draft, right? That so draft is a shortened form of bill of exchange. So I will use both sometimes conveniently. If I want to stress specifically, I will say bill of exchange, or a little bit of colloquial when I will say draft. So there are instances, there are certain exporters, because the volatility of the wavering of their customer, that's the importer, they are not very sure that they will pay. They will pay. Like in the forfeiting, just because the customer has accepted, what happens if he doesn't show up on the due date? So there will be a wavering. The past experience shows to the exporter this further is not very prompt. Always there are 1 week, 2 week delay of payment. That's also after numerous reminders. So therefore, we will say for the third time, fourth time, no, this nothing to do with. I want, if you want this consignment to go through, I want your banker to guarantee. Then it becomes the bank's payment. Then it becomes the bank's payment. Right? So I'll take it down under. In other words, exporter requests the importer's bank to avalize. A-V-A-L-I-Z-E. A-V-A-L-I-Z-E. Avalize. Avalize the bill of exchange. Take it down in the curly bracket. Avalization could take place. Avalization is a name, T-I-O-N. Avalization. Not S-A-T-I-O-N. This is not a dictionary word. So careful on the spellings, right? Avalization takes place only on user's draft. User's draft. Yes, honey, I see you. See, this is I read your question. You want me to explain a little bit with the users. On my usage itself, you must have known now. Users means you are using the draft before paying. Users, right? Not a dictionary word unless you refer to a better dictionary like Webster. You don't find in a common dictionary the word users, USA and CE. So users means you are making the payment on a postponed date. Usually a check being drawn on demand. But the bill of exchange could be drawn either on demand or on a fixed or future deliverable time. So both fixed and future deliverable times are deferred payment dates. So in a nutshell, check has only one face, but the bill of exchange has two facets. Two facets. You don't say two faces, two facets. Right? So that's what we call users. So avalization could take place only on users. There's no question of making avalization or making a guarantee for that matter for a site. Site means anyway you have to pay. You can't buy time for site. Right. Now, Shihani, you understood. All right. Thank you. You're welcome. Right. Likewise, I appreciate that particular student of asking that. You always start an interruption because you are just nudging a chat here. So don't think that you are interrupting me. Just put it. Don't try to make very phraseful or in a procedure manner. When you start writing, I will know what the question is. So don't worry of presenting the question. Right? Only thing I will not notice when I'm trying to focus on something that you have taken down because I don't get a prompt message here unless I see. So therefore, there could be a little bit of delay of responding. But in this case, of course, I have not minimized. I have taken it to side sideways to the screen so I can see. Right. So that's in the calculator you wrote. No, it could be take place only on the user's draft. Right. Close the bracket. So avalization is what? Now this is the bill of exchange. Bill of exchange has three parties. Drawer. To whom it is being drawn on is called the drawee. So in other words, bill of exchange need not be drawn on a banker. You can draw on the bank also as well. When you come to document credits, bill of exchange is drawn on a banker. Right? But a check has to be drawn on a banker only. This could be drawn on by anybody to anybody. So drawee can be an individual, a company, group of people, or to a bank. So you get a payee also. Generally, the payee is the drawer's banker. Generally, the payee is the drawer's banker. In other words, if Bernard is the exporter, I will draw a bill of exchange to German guy. And if I have my account at Sampath Bank, I will tell you credit my services or some opinion that I have given sold him, right? Don't worry, not online. Service that I have sold him. And he is supposed to send me €1 for that. €1. So I will draw a bit of exchange and say, German guy here, and pay I will say Sampath Bank. Now, so this German fellow has to go to his bank and request his bank to pay Sampath Bank now. So Sampath Bank now will credit to my account. So pay is always means most of the time is the drawer's banker. Right. So once you accept, this becomes the acceptable bill of exchange. Now it's the acceptable bill of exchange. So I told you in the illustration of the what do you call in the validation, there are certain instances where the exporters call for importers bank guarantee. That's how it started the definition. But importers bank will make a guarantee only on the acceptable bill of exchange. Drawee cannot, Importer can't go to his bank and tell, here my customer wants to make a guarantee for you, so give you guarantee, give I'm a good customer. You block any amount of funds of mine, and you better guarantee this and give to me. Bank will deny. Bank will say, no, you accept first. After that, I will analyze. So that little part has to be corrected in the particular situation. In another bracket down, I'll say importers bank will analyze. Importers bank will analyze. Analyze. Present tense. Importers bank will analyze. Only the accepted bill of exchange. The accept is capital A. Accepted bill of exchange. Only the accepted bill of exchange. Then the bank was covered, no, because the customer has already accepted the bill of exchange. Right. So now if you add one and one together, if you read the evaluation first, and after that you have read the what you call the forfeiting, you will see forfeiting is happening outside the bank because the influence and the theory given by the banker called a thing called evaluation. The evaluation will take place on the user's draft. Forfeiting also will take place on the user's draft. It is possible because of the evaluation. Evaluation is done in the bank in the abundance, right? So we are in such a country sometimes, however much that you are trying to be weak, your customer is not relying on you. So they want you to, I know that you are good, I know that you are very prompt in your commitment, but I want your bank to guarantee. That is the trade that we are facing of today. Right. Now we'll come to factoring. Factoring. Now factoring means, unlike it forfeiting, you are taking over the whole sales ledger from the customer. You have to employ, you mean the bank, right? Employees in the organization premises, and he takes over the sales ledger. And he will take over the sales ledger and note all the sales that he's doing. So factoring cannot be done like the forfeiting for one or two transactions. Factoring has to be done for the whole transaction. That's the main difference, right? So in other words, you are buying debts. You are buying debts. Customer can, the bank can buy the debts, right? So we'll see what international factoring is, right? So I will explain through a grid bus again. To get importer, then you get an exporter. You get a local fact, domiciled in the exporter's country, local fact, and you get an international fact. International fact. Right. Now what the exporter will do, he has to ship the goods, consign to importer. Right. And the exporter will forward the documents, unlike in the forfeiting. In the forfeiting, exporter has to forward the documents to the importer's bank. In factoring, exporter will forward the documents, consign to importer, but dispatch also to the importer. What are docs? Commercial documents, transport documents, issues personal certificate. Right. So the exporter will draw a set of invoices. Exporter will draw a set of invoices. A set of invoices is commercial invoices. You find the original invoices in here. So he will draw. Who is drawing the invoices? By the exporter himself, right? What is the invoice? A legally binding document. Based on the quotation, he draws the final document called a commercial invoice. It's a legally binding document. And who draws the commercial invoice? By the seller himself, seller or the exporter, right? So he draws, so he can draw any number of invoices. So he draws a set of invoices and forward to the local factory, right? And request the local factory to purchase outright, purchase, right? So number 4 of the listing, it says factory company makes payment to the assigned invoices to the exporter without recourse. So what is recourse? Recourse means falling back. Falling back. Falling back. Meaning I purchased from you. If the item is bounced off, I fall back to you again and recover the money. So recourse is falling back action. Here, when the invoice are given to the local factor, the exporter requests the local factor to purchase, but without recourse. Without recourse. Another word for that is sans recourse. Sans recourse. Now that's a very salient feature in here. When the local factor purchases, he purchases without recourse. Right. The gravity of that we will understand very, very soon. For the moment, you understand that he purchases without recourse. Right. Right. Then what happens? What is happening next now? The importer makes a payment to the agent of the factory company, the internal factor, on the agreed date. So obviously, in the sales agreement, they may have agreed on which date they are supposed to pay. I'm not very specifically saying that it is a user's thing, but they have an agreed date. So the importer will say on this particular date I will pay. That's a promise. So on the agreed date, importer will make the payment to the international factor. Agreed date. Right? And the international factor will reimburse, or international factor, in other words, recredit to the local factor by taking their service fee. So the payment will be done minus service fee to the local factor. So that is how the local factor gets reimbursed for the payment that they have done without recourse. That's what we call factoring. To understand better on the factoring also is not done that much in the bank premises. It is something happens in outside the bank. But I can take 1 or 2 instances where there are certain banks, new entrants, does this factoring. Say, we don't have that much of customers in the base, in the spectrum, but we have 1 or 2, namely John Keels. Then we have this Cargills. So I will take, I'm just taking for the argument's sake only. These are not factually correct ones. Just to put across what factoring is, if you are hearing as an alien term today. So there are many suppliers provide goods, vegetables or fruits or whatever it is to Keels. Say. So we have Apico, Keels, last, but then we have the Cargills, right? Keels. So there are plenty of suppliers. supplier 1, supplier 2, supplier infinity or n. So all these suppliers will take one commodity, say that one vegetable, ladies finger will say, that is bandaka. Ladies finger, they provide in metric tons or in kilograms manner with some weight, they produce, will send you. So on when the supply one gives the produce of his on day one, if the value of the production is say in rupee terms, we'll say rupees 25,000. Like that it goes depending on the size of the consumable, prices varies, and the keys will not pay immediately for them. So don't take it to your heart now. I'm not accusing keys for not paying. Keys can enjoy some credit period, right? So it will be very cumbersome thing for the keys. Company like that, every time a vendor comes and hands over the stock, that they will make the payment. It's difficult to cost. So therefore, they will give a specified time. If you give today, after 60 days or 45 days, so you get paid. So during the 45 days, you can make many these things, right? So the payments will be done after 45 days. So who is looking at this? There is a segment called a bank. Bank can see this particular customer is not getting paid. The supply, if he's a customer of this particular bank, he will see that this particular customer produces and gives, but he's not getting paid immediately. So he will charm the customer or the customer, prospective customer, and he will say, look, you are taking 45 days to get paid, right? You draw a set of invoices, right? Bank will address him in a proper, understandable language, not saying invoices, some kind of a thing. And our bank will draft the invoice for him and ask him to sign as if that he has issued. And bank will say, okay, you draw an invoice, I will pay immediately to you. But I will not give you 25,000 because you have 45 days credit. I will give you 23,500. Deal? Okay. That is discounting. That is called invoice discounting. So there's a thing called like that process when in the market. New banks, new entrant of a particular bank doing this, but many banks do not. Right. So we'll start from the next method of payment. Before that, I need to illustrate what a promissory note is. Promissory note is there's a financial instrument called promissory note. Check with official promissory note. There are plenty of promissory notes, but promissory note is important to the students who are studying foreign trade. So I will read the handout is there. I will take about 1 minute to explain what a promissory note is. And in the meantime, I want to tell you something. We have a huge area to cover. Huge area to cover, and most of the areas are very technical areas. In other words, I won't use the word tough, but we are getting closer to toughness now. And therefore, my second EPD is again repeated EPDs. Try to be regular to the class. And I know that for somehow they will get the what you call the audio recorded thing or something decent, but somehow they do it that and try to fall in line with me on the same software. I have given an assignment. A lot of people have responded it, and thank you. And almost all have done very well. I have given a score also to encourage you all. And and one more thing, from next week onwards, parallelly for 1 hour, that is from 2 to 3 o'clock, I will be doing forex. So we will have a parallel session on the method of payment and forex. So by the time when we see January is done, almost whole area of the forex being covered, right? So like that I will do 2 sessions parallelly from next session onwards. To be ready, get a small calculator and come for the class next week, right? And during the course of this coming week, I will get you a certain elementaries of the forex transactions. And in the meantime, you can always put some Rajas in here. I will go to the chat box. Nothing in there so far. Right. Advance payment. Right. Give a second. Advance payment is the other method of payment, completely opposite. That is the other side of the coin of the open account trading. Open trading accounts where the buyer has a upper hand, where he can find plenty of sellers. In the case of an advance payment, seller is more dominant over buyer, and he can find abundance of buyers, right? So we have the DNS factor, right? That is buyer and the seller for the purpose of trade. So we have this contract of sale between them. And they have decided to fall in line with the advance payment. In this case, the seller is more stronger than the buyer. Right. So in other words, seller will tell the buyer, you make the payment, the value of the goods in advance. You make the value of the goods. If the value of the goods is $1, you make the payment in advance to me. After that, I will send you the documents. I will send you the goods. It's so dominant to say that. Now here the advance is the first outset. I need to tell you one thing. It is not the customary advance that we are talking of. Say for instance that I have taken a contractor to do some work at my house, and he costed the thing and given the quotation to me saying, I need at least 50,000 to do this. I said, okay, well, let you go ahead with it. Then he comes and tells me to start that, I need at least 10,000 rupees for my infrastructure. So I will drop an invoice and say 50,000 is agreed. Balance payment on such a date, they will be given 10,000 less balance payable 40,000. So what is this 10,000 is called? An advance. So he is asking for an advance of 10,000 out of the agreed contracted value of 50,000. I have agreed and I have paid an advance of 10,000. That is not the advance of advance payment we are talking. This is very customary, it's in usage, very understandable. This advance payment is not that. This advance payment is a method of payment. Advance payment of method of payment that we are talking of is, students, is you are making the payment in advance. You are making the payment of the value of the goods in advance. Maybe there's a little bit of thin difference that has to be identified very properly. Right. If the value of the goods is $25,000, seller says, I don't want fractions. You send me the 25,000 in advance. That's what you call advance payment. Otherwise, it won't become a method of payment. Right? Advance payment is you are making the payment in advance. What's the payment? Value of goods. Right. So the buyer, so we are assuming the value of the goods is $25,000. So buyer will go to his bank and request the bank, this is the buyer's bank, importer's bank, and request the bank to make the payment to the seller or to seller's bank, in other words. So the banking details you would have given to the buyer. These are my banking details. I want to see the credit in my bank statement. After that, I will decide to sell the goods and to this thing. So he will say, the buyer will try to negotiate with him. He will say, now see, now this big money, this is big money. I am parting with the money. Why don't you take half of it? Then he will say, no, I don't want, because I can find plenty of buyers who's willing to pay. So I will choose one of them. It's such dominant the seller is in this case. So he goes to the banker and look at the bank to make the payment. Bank will not just reflect that the money is blindly like that. Bank will ask some kind of an invoice, some agreement that he has fallen with the seller. That particular invoice is called, not the commercial invoice, the pro forma invoice. Pro forma, P-R-O-F-O-R-M-A. Pro forma invoice means the form's sake. Form's sake. This is not a legally binding document. Having known that, still why the importer bank asked for that is to convince the bank that the buyer and the seller has some kind of an agreement, sales agreement. Otherwise, if they make the payment without checking on those, and if those monies are just repatriating out of the country and the goods will never come to the country, this bank will get exposed for money laundering due to negligence. So to avoid negligence, bank will adopt to get some kind of a document to satisfy, to convince themselves that they have an agreement. Who? The buyer and the seller. But the importer bank cannot be expected to go and see whether the seller is existing or the goods are going to get shipped. But at least they can get relief from the accusation of negligence. And therefore, the bank will ask for a pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice means a replica of the commercial invoice. Commercial invoice, the invoice being drawn against the pro forma invoice, which is the final invoice, which is legally binding. That document is not there because the seller has to send those documents. But he has a pro forma invoice. So he will give the pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice will generally carry the seller's banking details. So looking at that, if the bank is convinced and that he is a customer of the importer's bank, bank will repatriate the money, or remit the money, in other words, to the seller's bank, according to the instructions given in the pro forma invoice. This is the seller's bank, SBK. And the execution method of payment will be a SWIFT payment order. It's MP103. SWIFT message type, MP stands for message type. 103 is the format, MP103. I told you there are only two payment orders in the SWIFT. There are 999 SWIFT formats. Out of 999 formats, there are only two payment orders. That is 103 and the 202. You can't use the 202 for advance payments remittances. You have to use the 103. 103 stands for a customer transfer and the 202 stands for a bank transfer. Right. So monies are sent back here. So once the monies are received by the seller, in other words, once the monies are realized at the seller's bank, then the seller will send the goods, seller will send the documents to the customer. Right? Not to the banker, to the customer. Then the seller will pay the consignment. That's what the what you call advance payment is generally. But from up to this point, no questions will be asked. But there's another thing very unique for Sri Lanka, or the Sri Lankan government authorities, especially the import and export control has imposed a regulation. That is very important for you all to know. So therefore, don't Google search with regard to advance payment. It gives nothing for you all because it's very unique for Sri Lanka thing. two questions that I'm going to tell you. So now the importer's bank has, made the payment as requested by the performer invoice. So importer's bank must not think the transaction is finished. They have to keep the file open pending. And they will do that with a promise at the time that the importer comes and requests the bank will take an indemnity and a declaration from the importer saying that the goods will arrive to Sri Lanka. Goods will arrive at Sri Lanka within 108 days from the date of remittance. Within 108 days from the date of remittance, the goods should come to Sri Lanka. In other words, the customer should come to the bank and show the cust deck, copy of the cust deck. Copy of the cust deck will show the goods have come, yes, cleared. Otherwise, if the customer doesn't come, the bank will monitor that and they will report to the supervision department of the central bank or statistical department and report against the customer. They will do a separate survey and a separate surveillance with regard to customer, fearing that whether they have actually laundered the money. So therefore, this is why advance payments are not given to branches to handle. This function is handled by in the trade division or in the head office. The bank that I serve, this was given to certain identified branches, big branches in vicinity in Colombo. Otherwise, many banks does in one point. Because you need to check a lot of things. When the customer gives the advance payment, not to the performer invoice, you have to get a proper declaration from the customer, promising that the customer will give available the cost deck. And you should know the gravity of it. Right. I think I will give a little bit of illustration what a promissory note is. Promissory note. Don't take the literal meaning of promise. Beyond that, it's a legal term, promissory note. It is somebody that is A is making a promise. A is the maker, promises that he will pay on a particular day, the fixed day, on the maturity date, to the recipient. Right? It's a promise. So I draw a promissory note, they will understand. And I'll draw parallelly a bill of exchange also as well. So this is a bill of exchange. It's a promissory note. Promissory note, you usually call that as a demand promissory note, DPN. This is a bill of exchange. So we'll understand a bill of exchange first, then we'll come to the promissory note. Bill of exchange, I will rush. Bill of exchange is the drawer requires the drawee to pay. In a bill of exchange, drawer requires the drawee to pay on a stipulated date or at sight. Either way, drawee is demanded. Drawee is demanded. In a check, even though it's not drawn on a drawee, it's drawn on a banker. So it's demanded the bank to pay. Who? The drawer. Promissory note is not there. Promissory note is just a maker. That's a maker. He's the promisor. Promisor. That means PROMISSOR. Right? In other words, the correct pronunciation of that is promisor. For you to understand better, I'm spelling it, pronouncing it in a different way. Say promisor. On a phonetic way, it's promisor. So he's the maker. He's making a promise. He's the person issuing. He's the person issuing and signing. But he is not requiring somebody else to pay. Instead, he is making a promise that he will make the payment to whom? To the promisee. Promisee. That's the drawee there. The promisee. They want certain money, 1,000 rupees. He will say on due date, some date here, he will say, I will make sure that I will make the payment on such and such date. So he will say, no, nothing doing that. I need to have a promissory note from you. So he will give a promissory note. So when you give the promissory note, I am liable. The maker is liable. That's what you call the promissory note. Now you can figure out what the difference between a bill of exchange and a promissory note. You can read the note, you will understand better. Right. And the promissory note is so demanded, you call that as in the banking term as demand promissory note. On usage, you call in trade called DPN. DPN. Right. Right. So advance payment is not finished. I will be able to finish only advance payment today. So I will have less than 10 minutes. I will rush that. Remember, advance payment in detail. You have to listen very carefully, and these are the paramount important for the examiner to teach you all with certain questions, right? So advance payment could be done immediately for any amount of monies. Remember, any amount of money could be sent. Now, if the seller says you send the value of the goods is so much, that so much could be remitted or repatriated. No questions will be asked. If the value of the goods exceeds $50,000, if the value of the goods is exceed $50,000, then bank will tell the importer, I will remit the money, but you have to get a foreign bank guarantee. Foreign bank guarantee. Foreign bank guarantee on a standby letter of credit. Don't worry about the standby. What a standby letter of credit is. When I do the variant of our letters of credit, I will touch the standby letter of credit as well. For the time being, remember, the customer has to organize a foreign bank guarantee or a standby letter of credit for the bank to consider when the bank is repatriating monies if the value of the goods is more than $50,000 or equivalent in any designated foreign currency. Understood? Right. Why is that? If $50,000 in any means is a big amount. Because the money is being sent across at an advance payment, and if the goods won't come, then that hit cannot be taken into the economy like Sri Lanka. So, if there's a foreign bank guarantee, then if the goods won't come, bank can claim through the guarantee and get the monies across. Right? That is why the foreign bank guarantees are there. Not a local guarantee, it's a foreign bank guarantee. Standby letter of credit is a more complex instrument. I will explain that later. Kind of a guarantee, but it's a guarantee incorporated in a letter of credit. Right. And one more important aspect we need to tell you. If these monies are expected to repatriate as an advance payment against a foreign currency account from a customer. The foreign currency accounts are two kinds of there are three types. That is the PFCA and the BFCA. Personal foreign currency account, that is NRC and RC categories. Then the BFCA is the business foreign currency account, that is indirect export of foreign currency, direct export of foreign currency, like that. You get the business type and the individual type. And you get the FCBU type was as well. That is foreign currency bank unit, that's a separate section. So these are the type of foreign currency you find in a bank. Foreign currency accounts type. So if a customer has a PFC account or a BFC account, and if the customer gives a letter of authority to debit my BFC account and send $65,000 as an advance payment against his performer invoice, now this is well ahead of $50,000. Then this requirement of foreign bank guarantee or a standby letter of credit is not there. If foreign bank guarantee and a standby letter of credit requirement is there, if you are repatriating monies at an advance payment, on an advance payment method of payment, and the value of the goods exceeds $50,000 against a local rupee account only. Remember that very carefully, right? Right, that's all I need to tell you. So I hope that you have, got it right. So next week we will do the method of payment of DP, documents against payment, and documents against acceptance. And if time permits, we will do the what you call the documentary credit source as well. It's a very complex area, but I will do that also as well. But very likely I might get disturbed to not to touch the documentary credit, because parallelly I said that I will do the forex session. So the week after next, I will do the documentary credits plus forex. So a week after, for 3 weeks after that, even I will continue with the what you call the documentary credits plus forex. So I need parallel 6 sessions. The reason why I'm cutting to 1 hour each, right? So by second week of January, I will finish the forex, and I should be able to finish the URC or as well. That is Uniform Rules for Collection. Right. So that's my plan. If everything goes God willing, and provided that you are giving a feedback like this, I should be able to do it in a more encouraging manner. Right. So if there's anything that you can rush it, always will wind up with another 1 or 2 weeks time. Looks like there's no questions, right? You are welcome, Rosika. And anybody else have put a question here and there in a rush? No, nothing. Right. Thank you, Chandrika. So my advice you to is like, unlike in any subject that you can't wait until the last moment, right? You have to study. If you're not started, you have to study now itself. Do it analytically. Don't just read. Do it in a methodical way, and try to sketch some side notes for you. Then you will remember at least. And we are coming ahead for more difficult areas, so that you need to get yourself groove a little bit and keep pace with me also as well sometimes. So thank you, Gayumi. So I hardly see a question here and there. Right. If there's anything when you're studying, if you get stuck, just put me a note through my email, or you can text me also as well. Right, now it's time up. So good afternoon to you all. I'll see you on next Sunday again.